Welcome to another episode of In Depth and Out Loud. It's really about connecting what you're learning as a student to the world that you are planning to get into. Now, my guest today is big on beauty, big on content creation. She's got quite an extensive knowledge in the world of brand strategy in the digital space with all the brands that she's worked with. But ultimately, it's about creating content and it's about looking absolutely beautiful as a beauty influencer. Her name is Thandiwe Gama. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
What on earth is content creation in 2024 going forward? Because I have a feeling that this kind of explanation, some people call it definition, has probably evolved over time.
For me, I think content creation is basically our way of advertising, right? It's our way of communicating to the current generation. So basically before, advertising was you see a billboard, you see a TV ad, you listen to the radio and an ad will pop up somewhere in between. But now people are not paying attention to the radio. They don't watch TV as much. When you're driving, you're not really taking notice of billboards. So then how do you speak to people? They have people that they watch on social media. So those are the people you go to share whatever information that you have. And they do that in the form of content creation.
So where does this fit in our daily world and in how we communicate and what we're trying to communicate? Because you've highlighted traditional media platforms. Mm-hmm. Are you then saying that content creation from a digital point of view is in itself its own platform?
It is its own platform. I think when we look at people, obviously we have our parents, right? There's a different way of reaching our parents. I mean, the old way of TV advertising and everything, that is still relevant for them. But like people like me, that is not relevant. I don't have DSTV. I don't watch DSTV. You can't reach me with ads on DSTV. But if you are sharing information through someone's, let's say Mitlali posts a video, I've seen that, I know what she says, I take it in, and if it's something that I'm interested in, I'm going to do more research on that. So basically that's where it stands right now.
So how do you know what content to put out? For instance, with broadcast media, we talk about, for example, radio, you have to entertain, inform, educate. So what about, content online? What's the plan there?
I think how you know what to share is basically you have to first understand your audience. So the brand has to understand their audience, the content creator has to understand their audience. And once both people understand what their niche is, then you can say, okay, this brand can say, this person fits perfectly in communicating my message because they speak about makeup, whatever it is. Like cars can't come to me and say, okay, we need you to sell our car. That's not something I do. I speak on makeup, beauty. So I'm the most relevant person for brands in the beauty space to reach out to. And for me, when I'm creating content that also attracts those type of brands. So if I ever wanted to venture into something like that, then I'd need to know about cars and then, start sharing videos on that. So it's basically you understanding what you're communicating and finding the right people to partner and collaborate with.
I would imagine, Thandi, that we're all content creators, right?
Yes.
But not everybody has a strategy or a plan behind the content they put out. Yeah. Like with you, for example. So what is the importance of curating your content and having some sort of strategy behind it? And how do you come up with that?
So the way I come up with strategies is basically, if a brand comes to me and says, we have a foundation we want to sell, right? I then look at my audience and I want to know what are their pain points, right? What are they looking for? Most people that follow me go to work. When you think of someone that's working, it's like they're going to wear makeup for like a good 9 hours, right? How do I communicate that this product lasts 9 hours? I need to do that sort of research. I need to understand, okay, so a lot of the people that I'm speaking to are also a particular race. For them, shade match is very important. So I need to look at the brand before I agree to work with them and say, do you also speak to my audience? Because I can't work with a brand that has like 2 shades for Black people because there's a vast range of shades that a foundation brand can offer. So it's very important for me to align with the brands that come to me, and through that I then know exactly what I'm like going to focus on when I'm creating content.
So when we create content, are we creating content to make a commercial, or is it just sometimes for fun? Like maybe even talking about how you started out, was it with the intention to really be strategic and make money out of it and work with brands, or was it just you fiddling around like you would in front of a mirror?
So there's two different types of content. There's sponsored content, right, which is basically your advertisement, and then there is organic content. And for content creators, it's very important for you to be able to balance out having both. I mean, I know there's some people who really focus a lot on the sponsored content. They're like, I just want to focus on people paying me and then creating ads for them. But for me, what makes me stand out, I think if we look at it, we're in February right now, I've released maybe close to 20 pieces of content, only 2 is sponsored, right? And that 18 is content that I'm creating every day to reach my audience and ensure that they're still there. Because if I said I only focus on sponsored content, I'd only come to them once every 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 2 weeks, and that's not good enough for them. If you have an audience, you need to keep them engaged. You need to have something that they come back to. That's something they consume. You know, they're not watching TV, right? They are entertained by the way you dress, by the way you do your makeup. So you have to keep them there and give them something they can look forward to. People like wake up and want to see a new post every day.
So then what makes a successful content creator? I mean, even with yourself as a case in point, yes, you spoke about a niche, you know, knowing what you're about.
Yeah.
But what makes one a successful content creator?
I think a successful content creator, someone that knows themselves, someone that knows why they started what they're doing. Like for me, I've always loved doing makeup, right? And it's something that is, I would say, authentic to who I am. I share it whether I'm paid or not paid. It's something I will do either way. So what makes you successful is knowing that you love something. And if you love something, you're going to do the research anyway. You're going to share it whether you're being paid or not. So success is all about being able to just like think about the people that follow you and sharing things that they're interested in. Yeah.
And where do you get that insight? How do you know who your followers are, the ones that are legitimately interested in your content, and what it is that they want? I mean, is there any data that points out to anything to guide you?
You can look at your analytics. Your analytics will only tell you, okay, it's mostly females that follow you. It's mostly people in Joburg or people in Cape Town. But then you have to go deeper and focus on the comments, right? Your engagement. What are people saying? When you share a foundation, what is people's response to what you shared? When you post a story, what are people saying in your DMs? Like, are they responding and saying, I like that top, I'd like to know about that top? Or if you post a shoe, are people saying, that's a nice shoe, I like it, but I don't know if I could style it more than once? When you discover that, you're like, oh, hey, there's something I could share. I could show people that you can style this shoe in 5 different ways.
Sure.
It'll make them want to purchase. Or it will make them say, you know what, now I understand why you're an influencer, because you give me ideas that I could never have thought of.
Sure.
Yeah.
So then how do you know you being effective? Like, how do you know that you're making a difference, that you're having an impact, that people are lapping up your content? What's the measure of that success?
So I think for me, it's never just views. I think it's more like engagement. You can see by the amount of comments, like what people are saying. People will react in a certain way. If you have 80,000 views and only 2 comments, it means people are seeing it, but they really don't care, or they saw it, but they took nothing from it. But then if you have 80,000 views and 2,000 comments, it means like people are looking at this and saying, okay, I'm interested. I have an idea of what you're saying to me. You're speaking to me. And those comments, if they're focused on the particular product that you were focused on, then you're able to measure the success. Because sometimes you could share something, foundation, and people only come and speak about your hair. I mean, you didn't do what was supposed, like the brand will come back and say, we didn't get the type of engagement we were hoping to get, because the focus of the video was more on the hair than it was on the foundation.
Yeah, let's talk about the brand stuff.
Okay.
I mean, you've worked with brands, and some key examples would be great of why they chose to work with you and how that comes about. You know, do they knock on your door? Do you knock on their door? Is there somebody who's always watching content creators and what they put out? How does it work?
I think there's always people watching. There's obviously agencies that are watching. They keep an eye on your page, what you share. And brands follow you based on their alignment, their values. So if your values align with their values, you're someone they think they can work with. So I'll give an example. I'm currently the ambassador of Eucerin. So for them to approach me, it was like, okay, I had an issue with acne. I shared that journey for a good 7 years on my platform. And during that journey, I also spoke about the products that I was using when I went to the dermatologist. I mean, I shared that online and said, oh, guys, they told me to use Eucerin. This is what's worked. So the brand could see that I'm someone who already uses the product. And also my audience is interested in finding out ways that they can, just improve their skin. So then the brand would be like, okay, we want to work with you because your audience is interested in skin and you share information about skin. So us coming together to collaborate would be like perfect marriage.
Yeah, because it also speaks to the word that everybody throws around, authenticity.
Yes.
And all of that stuff. And sometimes, I mean, I don't know if this has ever happened to you where you take, a brand partnership purely because the money is good, not necessarily that you're in that space. Have you ever found yourself in those kinds of intersections?
No.
And which way do you go?
No, I get a lot of requests, but people are always shocked when I say I also reject a lot of brand deals because it's not, authentic to me. There are certain things, like if something's too, I remember there was a brand, I can't mention the name, obviously I don't want to bash anyone, but their product was bikinis that started from like 3,000 Rand, 7,000 Rand. I was like, who am I speaking to here? Because my audience is not going to buy that. My particular audience, like when I look at them, the things that interest them, if I post anything that costs this much, you're not going to get the return on investment that you're hoping to get. So if I took this money, I'd be lying to you because I also wouldn't purchase it myself. So it needs to be like, do I see myself also buying into the product? So when I work with a brand, it's about, does this product also work for me? It's not just about the money. That's why authenticity is important. Like aligning yourselves with brands that you would purchase, you would buy, you would be interested in. I mean, there are things that I would spend 10,000 Rand on, but it's just not a bikini.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I suppose it speaks to the ethical question as well, isn't
Yeah.
it? In terms of what you are prepared to do and how that comes across and how that gets put out. On that note, platforms online. How do you know which platform is effective for the type of content that you've created? And even just crafting the content from length to what is in the videos and the content. Like, how do you work out which platform is more suited for the content you're trying to put out?
So I think it's important to understand like how much of information are you sharing, right? I mean, if you can get it down in a minute, that is short form content. So you're probably going to share that on Instagram, TikTok, or any of these platforms. But if it's something that requires you to actually sit down and inform the viewer, that would be long form content. And you might find yourself placing it on a space such as YouTube. So there are brands that will say, oh, can we sponsor a segment in one of your vlogs where you speak about the product and show people how you use this in your everyday life? Because there's some things where you can't really spend a minute on and like someone won't be able to get what this can do. So yeah, there's long form, short form. It's basically all about how much content you're sharing.
And what are some of the pressures that you experience personally as being a content creator in the beauty space where I would imagine perfection is almost everything? I mean, take me through that.
Well, yeah, some people want perfection, but I feel like that is, for me, that's never been the thing. I don't ever want to come across as perfect because then that cuts out authenticity because nobody's perfect, right? I think pressure points for me as a content creator would be things such as trying to fight the algorithm, because when you're sharing things, you do know you've shared a good piece of content, but you just don't know how to beat the algorithm and get it to the right people. So those are the type of pressure points I find myself experiencing, but not exactly things such as, finding myself struggling whether I want to look perfect or in any way.
And consistency must be very important.
Very.
A lot of people create content, talk about consistency. What is that and what does that mean to you?
So consistency is basically if you see yourself as a brand. For me, I do this full time, right? This is my full-time job. So obviously, like I said earlier, you need to be sharing content quite often. And if you think about a platform such as Instagram, if you want to beat the algorithm on Instagram, they have all these rules. You have to make sure you post at least 6 stories a day. You have to post 3 pieces of content every week. There's certain rules that you have to follow. And if you're not following those rules, it's kind of like you get lost. And people will come back and be like, I haven't been seeing your content for months. That's because Instagram treats you like an employee. You haven't come to work for 2 weeks, so you're fired.
I like that analogy.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're an employee, you haven't come to work, and you're fired. Like they look at your hours. How much hours are you putting in? If you share more, they push out more of your content. That's why I said the organic content in between your sponsored content is also important.
Sure.
So, yeah.
So from a business point of view, how do you turn what you do into a business? Yes, you've spoken a lot about brands, but that's on the face of it. But on the back end, I would imagine that you need to have some sort of structure and a way of working in order to monetize what you do and make a success of it from a business point of view. Yeah.
So I think it's important to know, okay, when you look at your content, how much is it worth, right? And on top of that, you must add tax, because there's a tax man, right?
Sure.
So I think the best way to be able to monetize this is like, you have different ways. I mean, you have YouTube, which is, for some people, they find it as the best way to have a consistent income, because you get paid on the 25th. As a content creator, you can't literally say you're going to be paid every 25th. Well, you can if you treat yourself as a business, because what you would do is you'd run your influencer work as a business, register a business, have all your money go into a business account and pay yourself monthly. But you just have to ensure that you're able to sustain it enough to ensure that you're having enough money coming in. But also, if you're saying you only have gigs every 2 months, what is another way of sustaining your income? So you look at things such as AdSense. So you can run a blog, because you can have advertising there. You can have a YouTube channel where you have your income that comes in through there. So it's also important to look at different ways of bringing in income as an influencer. So yeah.
And I would imagine time is everything.
Yes, it is.
Because in a 24-hour cycle, some people have 9 to 5s and some people have different sort of commitments. So how did you manage that? I mean, you talk about now doing it full time.
Yes.
But even within that, there's got to be a balance in terms of how you work and the time you allocate to everything.
Yeah. So you literally have to take this very seriously. I mean, there's nobody watching you. You don't have a boss. You don't have a manager that's trying to follow up with projects. So for me, I remember when I was doing it, when I had a 9 to 5, I dedicated all my weekends to content creation. So I remember during that period, it was a struggle for me to keep up with friends, to keep up with family, because it was I always had work to do, and my job was long hours. I was working till late, so the only time I had was weekends. But then now that I do it full time, it's kind of like I have to have a consistent routine. So it's like you wake up, you go to the gym, come back, get to the house, you do your emails, and you start working on whatever project you have, and you just kind of have to kind of find what works for you and keep to that. So yeah.
And some of the challenges, I mean, the cost of running, is there a cost of running? Ordinarily with a traditional business, it's brick and mortar, and then there's rent, and then there's staff. For a content creator, what does that look like?
There is a cost of running it. I mean, for me, it's my rent, because the place I stay in has to look a certain way, because that's where I create all my contents. Basically, my home is my office. There is things such as when you're creating content for a business, you have props. So if I decided I was going to shoot content for this vase, I mean, I'm not just going to place it empty like that. I'd want to put flowers in it. That's a cost. So you sort of have to have an idea of how much every piece of content costs you, and then implement that. So for me also, I do everything. So when I charge, it includes the fact that I'm a sound engineer, I'm the makeup artist, I am the script writer, the videographer, editor, there's all in one. I'm the accountant. So all those things need to be taken into consideration. And when you go to a brand, then this is how much I'm going to charge you, because your project's going to take me this amount of hours to accomplish. I need to have this many props. I need to do this. Is there traveling involved? Do I need to outsource any work, or is there something I can do myself? So there are a lot of costs that go into it.
So for anybody who is keen on being a content creator, I mean, there are a lot of students who are watching this video, and I can assure you they come from different areas,
Yeah.
on the spectrum. What are the key things to have in place? How do you also keep things going from a creative point of view? What can one do to constantly keep themselves, abreast with what's going on, how certain platforms work? You spoke a lot about algorithms and stuff.
Yeah. So I think you need to be someone who loves this. You need to love what you do in order to be able to keep up with being a content creator. One, I would say you end up being a salesperson. So you need to be someone that likes people, because the amount of DMs you get, like you post something and there's questions. So if you're working with a brand, what ends up happening is that those people come to you. So you need to be someone who, when you work with a brand, you look for information on whatever you're working on that specific project. You understand what that is, because somebody's going to come back and ask you, does it come in different colors? How much does it cost? You can't be promoting something and you don't even know how much it costs when someone asks you in the comment section. So you also have to have good time management. Like I said, you don't have a boss. You need to know, okay, if I have this project, I need to have this done in 2 days so I can work on the next one. Because like for me, I usually have 3 or 4 brands that I'm working on in a week, right? So how do I manage that and ensure that I complete this by Friday? Because I had to, 2 years into this, I had to be strict. I was like, I gotta have my weekends, otherwise I'm gonna go crazy. So let me treat this like an actual job and, maintain a structure where I say from Monday to Friday we work, weekend we reward ourselves, we have fun. And then other things to consider is you have to be someone who's constantly learning. I mean, in whatever position you're in, people that work 9 to 5s, they end up getting to a point where they're like, let me go get an honors, let me get a master's, or let me do a certificate in this because it's going to help. So in the content space, because you're in a digital world, you need to be spending time online learning. Okay, this is new. TikTok said they've removed music. What are you going to do now? You can't use certain music now. What are you going to do? You have to think about all these things. You literally have to be in touch with everything that's going on so you know how to position yourself, and you have to be someone that's able to adapt. Every year, something new will pop up. A new social media space will pop up. You need to, I had to teach myself TikTok. I mean, for me, when I started out, I was just on Instagram, YouTube. So when TikTok came out and all these kids were doing it, I was like, hang on, what is this? A brand was like, we need a TikTok video. I'm like, hang on, I know nothing about TikTok. So you have to be someone who is able to constantly adapt, and you have to be in a space where you're forever learning. Yeah.
Something else I have to ask about is how to charge a brand. So for instance, if you're in any other line of work, there's, industry standards, the going rate, etc. How does it work in the content creation space? How do you know what to charge, what your rate is? Is it that if you're a media personality like me, I can charge more? Or is it about, well, on this platform, this is how it works?
So the thing is, I don't think there has been a set standard for charging, because when I ask certain people, how much do you charge? Literally everyone is on a different spectrum. And I think it's basically understanding how much your content is worth. Like I said, for me, when I charge, I look at how much I've spent on equipment. Up to this day, I've spent close to 300,000 on equipment. So that's a cost to me. I look at, how many followers do I have? What is my engagement? You can also check the engagement rate. So different influencers have a different engagement rate. There could be someone that has 1 million followers, but a lower engagement rate than me. So when a brand comes and says, why are you charging us more than someone that has 1 million? I'm like, she's gonna post it. She's not gonna get you guys buyers, but if I post it, there are people that are gonna run into store. So there's a total difference between working with me and you. It's all about, what are you guys buying? Are you buying space, ad space, or are you trying to ensure that you have an ad space that gets you a return on investment? So you take the time, you do your research. I was lucky enough that I studied strategic brand communications. So from me having that knowledge in advertising, how much adverts cost, and then having worked at an agency and, quoting people, I kind of knew where to start off.
Right. So you had an in.
I had an in, so it was easier for me. But it's just like, I always tell people, ask around. There's managers, there's people who are able to help you figure out where you should be in that line of work, and based on your numbers, based on your engagement, based on the quality of your work.
Sure. I mean, I've heard of influencer bodies, and then you're telling me about, no real set standard of how to charge, almost like a free for all.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there needs to be a way to regulate how the space works?
Yes.
And where do you think that should come from?
I don't know where it will come from. Someone needs to think of it. I don't know where that will come from, but I've heard a lot of influencers saying this needs to be regulated, because for some people who know their worth, right? If I know how much I charge, there's going to be someone who charges less than me.
Sure.
And as the space grows and a lot of people are getting into it, a brand will say, we're not going to work with her. Those people are going to do it for less. But what they don't understand is they're taking for less, but they're not charging their worth, right? They don't understand their worth because they don't have the background knowledge. But if there was someone to sort of like control this and say, hang on, you are selling yourself short, you're worth more than that. And what people don't understand is, like, for me, charging you a certain price, it also affects how I'm able to earn the next few months. So if I work with a skincare brand, usually skincare brands won't want to work with you for a good 3 months. So I'm cutting out my earning potential for a good 3 months, and in that 3 months I'm focusing on beauty. So some people are just saving money because they're not thinking about tomorrow or thinking for the rest of the year. They're just thinking of the now. Oh, that's good. I will take 5,000 right now. I'm happy. But for me, it's all about, how do I sustain my lifestyle? How do I sustain being able to pay myself a salary every month? And also at the same time, I need to pay the taxman. So how do I ensure that I have money coming in to pay the taxman? So yeah.
Thandiwe, thank you so much for joining us. Fascinating stuff. Even for me as a media personality who also finds himself on social media, I think this has been great insight. Thank you for your time.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, and there you have it, in depth and out loud. Catch us again in another segment where we'll be bridging the gap between, what you're learning and what the real world of work looks like.